Alright, welcome back to Starladder Season 8, guys, here on Beyond the Summit. I'm Zyori. Joining me is Hippie, my co-caster from Dota Radio. We do have Aspera versus OSG coming up here. Unfortunately, we are a little behind schedule, and they did the draft while we were in the last game, but we can go ahead and take a look here, and I don't know, is this game going to crash here, Chris? I'm getting a little skeptical since we haven't loaded in yet.
I am loaded in.
Oh, okay, I'm loaded in. Oh, there we go. All right, now the picks come through. There we are. So, all right, let's go ahead and get into it here. First of all, Chris, thank you so much for joining us. Glad you were able to make it. How are you today, good sir?
I'm great as usual, man. I had a great weekend casting about half of Columbus. I had a blast watching those finals. They were insane, and I'm just happy to get back to more and more Dota. I can never have too much Dota to cast.
It's always a good day when there's Dota to cast, that's for sure. So let's go ahead and check out these rosters here again, as we did miss the draft. We do have Aspera on our Radiant side. In the bottom lane, looks like we're going to have Wall Eater playing on the Viper, and Blah Blah Foo going to be playing on the Visage in the bottom lane as well. In the mid, Sharfik going to be solo heads up on that Timber Saw, and up in the top, it's going to be Cat for KM on the Weaver, and he's going to be supported by Inquisitor playing on that Abaddon. On the Dire side, we do have Team OSG, a team I'm not particularly familiar with. I don't recall seeing them in Starladder Season 7, but alas, we do have Big Num here on Lifestealer. It looks like he's going to be headed down to the bottom lane. Going to be supported by one of their stand-ins, We Just Talk, playing on the Lich here with a cute little bit of Lich items there he's got on. It's going to be a solo mid-Veno, it looks like here. Chomi going to be playing on that Venomancer going up against the Timbersaw. That's something interesting we can talk about here. Tapo going to be on the Bristleback in the top lane. And Obi-Wan Banan going to be on the Crystal Maiden up here in the top lane as well. So, wow, a lot of interesting heroes here picked up. I would have loved to see how this draft unfolded. Chris, first impressions here for the OSG roster in particular with a Bristleback and a solo mid Venomancer.
Well, OSG in particular, they have a whole lot of slow to prevent the Lifestealer from getting kited around. They have Bristle slow, CM slow, Veno slow, Lich slow, and Veno slow, of course, will last through any sort of magic immunity if he gets it on beforehand. So Lifestealer is going to be very, very hard to avoid, which is very significant. On the other side, my first impression is that Aspera has Abaddon and 4 heroes who are incredibly good with Abaddon. I mean, Timbersaw, Viper, Weaver, you immediately think of those as like insanely good if they have any sort of added durability to them, lets them chase, lets them dive. And Visage too, he's squishy enough that if he just survives, he gets off so much damage because of his soul assumption. So just the Abaddon, I think, is an absolutely incredible pick for them, and it really is the cornerstone of their lineup in my mind.
Yeah, and the interesting part here is the Timbersaw versus Venomancer. We saw a Venomancer solo mid in Columbus in one match, and I'm forgetting who it was now, and it worked.
Mushi.
It was Mushi.
Mushi Veno versus an OD.
Look at that. You are spot on. So I think it worked pretty well against the OD. He was able to zone him out. The Timbersaw, though, I worry a little bit. Those points in reactive armor, it seems to be pretty even so far. 5-0 on the Timbersaw, 4-0 on the Venomancer. So they're getting an even exchange so far. We see Chomi unable to zone him out quite yet, but we'll hold that thought because up in the top lane, Tapo thought he might be in a little bit of trouble, but Bristleback, the tanky force that he is, going to be able to survive. So talk to us about Bristleback a little bit. I don't think he got much of a showing in Columbus whatsoever, but you know, a hero that definitely has some viability, I think, at least to some degree.
Yeah, the buffs of Warpath stacks to 5, 6, 7 was actually really, really significant. It means you can stack up a whole crap ton of damage. If you get all of your stacks of Warpath at max level, that's an additional 210 damage. It's actually pretty obscene. And combined with the minus armor he stacks up, combined with the slow, combined with how hard he is to kill, he can be a really, really effective hero, but I still think he lacks something in the late game against a more natural hard carry, but because of his tankiness, because of his ability to dive, because of all the minus armor that he stacks up in the early game before a lot of plus armor can be bought to counter him, he can be very, very effective against squishy or low armor lineups. Right. That said, aside from Visage and Abaddon, this isn't a particularly low armor lineup from Aspera. The Weaver is going to have great armor ticking up. The Viper as well. The Timbersaw, of course, with reactive armor. If he's getting any sort of auto attacks on him, it becomes very hard to bring him down. So I think in the mid game, maybe this Bristleback will have a few more problems than he would like to, but he still should be okay, just as long as he doesn't have the Timbersaw on top of him. I think that's the big deal. If he gets Timbersaw bursting, he might be in trouble now.
Yep. No, looks like he might be able to make it back. Crystal Maiden be able to throw out a Crystal Nova, and that will at least delay the forces a little bit. Bristleback now level 3, 2 points in the Quill Spray and 1 point in that Bristleback. At least getting that 1 point early on does help mitigate some of the incoming damage. I know one of the issues with Bristleback as well is his strength gain really isn't that great relative to a lot of other strength heroes. I know his int gain is pretty good, but of course that doesn't help you so much in terms of survivability. The name of the game with Bristleback is how long can I survive to keep stacking up those quills. So we'll see how he fares. He certainly is a momentum-based hero. If he picks up some bit of early aggression and maybe some early kills, bit of early farm, he definitely has a lot of presence in that mid game. But as you mentioned, he does start to fall off a little bit towards that late game. But luckily for OSG, they've got Lifestealer here to carry them through the late game, and it looks like he's off to at least, actually, no, he's off to a bad start. I was going to say an okay start, and then I looked at the numbers. Wow, he is only 4-0 down here in the bottom lane, getting completely zoned out. Right now, this Viper is 16-9, so getting the much better of the farm, and OSG might need to consider a rotation of sorts here because Big Num is getting absolutely nothing right now. He's got the brown boots, but that's about it. Only 4 creep kills here at the 4-minute mark on a Lifestealer is not where you want to be.
Well, yeah, anyone laning up against a Viper is going to have a lot of problems. If Visage as well, ooh, Viper might actually be in trouble here. Wall Eater.
Oh, he's going to port out, and it looks like he's going to be able to survive. Yeah, no way to interrupt there between the Lich and the Lifestealer. So, a bit of a sticky situation, but a nice heads-up play to port out, and he does port back to the base. I thought that might be one of those situations where he just ports back to the Tier 1 tower to reset his position, but no, he's going to port back to the base, and now going to have to walk all the way back to the lane, so this could be a small window here for Lifestealer to make just a bit of recovery for him. We're going to see this creep wave push up with that siege creep as well, so, well, it could help out the Lifestealer a little bit, but Visage did grab that haste rune that spawned in the bottom, and he's going to continue putting the pressure on, going to chip away at the health on that Lifestealer and make his life well, just a bit more difficult. Let's check the mid lane though and see what's going on here. We see Chomi on that Venomancer now level 5. He is 22-6 against the 19-0 Timbersaw, so it's still a pretty even exchange here in the mid lane, and actually Chomi getting slightly better of the farm, does now have his bottle to go with the Boots of Speed and opening Wraithband. Sharfek also now with his bottle and boots as well, so really just a straight even exchange. We see this Courier just hanging out next to Chomi, ready to run it back to the well as he does continue to bottle Crow. These Plague Wards, man, they're just so difficult to deal with. We see Sharfek only 1 point in reactive armor, 3 points in the Timber Chain. You do need those additional points in the mid lane for early Timber Chain to be useful because there just aren't a lot of trees in that middle of the lane. So I can sort of understand that build, but I think an extra point in that reactive armor may go a long way here to try and deal with all the dots coming out here from the Venomancer.
Yeah, I mean, on the one hand, it's true. On the other hand, that dot is so freaking strong. No amount of reactive armor is going to beat out Poison Sting, especially as he's leveling it over everything else. I mean, it's 15 damage per second right now. It'll be 20 when he finishes maxing it out. That means 10 damage per second if he's getting hit by the wards. So he'd have to stack up at least 10 charges of reactive armor to just out-tick the ward DPS. Mm-hmm. He'll never be able to out-regen the Venomancer DPS. And that's really the thing with Timbersaw, of course. The reason he does well against ranged heroes who are just relying on physical harass is because of the fact that he just regens it up. And if you can't actually get enough regen in lane, you're going to start to have issues. You see, as Venomancer's Poison Sting level keeps ticking up, Timbersaw is having more and more problems, I feel, against him. His health is staying very, very low. He's having to pop a whole lot of regen. He's having to ferry his bottle a whole lot to manage to just stay in this lane.
And up in the top lane here, Bristleback almost in a bit of a sticky situation. Weaver looking to dive it. He did have that aphotic shield on, but Crystal Maiden with the Frostbite going to delay his efforts here, and Bristleback will survive. We're now past that 6-minute mark. Still no kills on the field. Both teams seem reasonably comfortable with their semi-passive play. We've seen up in the top Aspera trying to get aggressive. We've seen this combo, the Abaddon and the Weaver, not recently. I think probably the last time we saw this was Starladder Season 7, honestly. But we have seen this combo before, and it does open up a lot of aggression for that Weaver to kind of dive that tower and really put a lot of pressure onto the Bristleback. There's been a couple of close calls, but Crystal Maiden has been spot on with the slows and disables. And of course, as I'm looking at that, I do miss the first blood in the bottom lane. It's going to be a rough game here, Chris. Lich going to get taken out by the Timbersaw. Big Nun going to escape by the skin of his teeth here.
And that was Wall Eater just playing the margins right there. He was baiting them into tower range, basically just pulled them slowly in, and then popped his magic wand at the last second to make sure he didn't die. Got the port in from Sharfik on the Timbersaw, and then just picked people off.
Yeah, and up in the top lane, Weaver getting a bit too aggressive right there. Does dive the tower. We saw Crystal Maiden drop the bit of crowd control, and that one last Quill Spray going to be enough, and Weaver going to fall. So a bit of hyper aggression coming out. It's going to be 1-1 here as Weaver does fall in the top lane, and of course the first blood did come out in favor of Sharfik on the Timbersaw. He was the one that grabbed that last hit. So that is great news for that mid laner, grabbing that bit of bonus gold here. He's got about 900 in the bank, and we'll see what he wants to grab. Looks like he's going to complete those power treads. Up in the top, though, the aggression is not done. Bristleback taking even more damage here as the Weaver is back, and they're going to dive this tower, it looks like. The Mist Coil going to be used on the Crystal Maiden. Oh, CM going to survive just about 30 hit points or so. They don't want to dive that tower. Now Baden going to be in big trouble. He's not yet level 6, only level 4. No way to get out. Venomancer does come to that top lane, connects with the Gale, and nothing the Abaddon can do. He had the Aphotic Shield on cooldown, I think, and unfortunately not going to be able to grab the kill on the Crystal Maiden. OSG do turn it around, now going to take the lead once again, 2-1 here at the 8-minute mark.
Yeah, one of the problems with going up against a Bristleback with Abaddon is that you can take off the slow. It's great. You take off the nasal goo, and then, you know, a second and a half later, he throws another one on you. You're never going to be able to get rid of enough slows to run away from a Bristleback. So if you do overcommit, as hard as that is to do with a Weaver and an Abaddon, which, you know, is an amazing diving pair, if you do end up overcommitting against this CM Bristleback, if they get the TPs, you're still not getting away, even though you have that Aphotic Shield.
Right. That's exactly what we saw right there. A nice heads-up play from that Venomancer to come in and set it up. He's going to head back to the mid lane, though, and just continue farming against Sharfik. Looking at the net worth chart, they're still pretty close to one another. Really, the gap is because of that bonus gold Sharfik was able to grab from that First Blood roaming down to the bottom lane. Down in the bottom, though, we're going to see perhaps a bit of pressure coming onto this Tier 1 tower. We see Ink Visitor on the Abaddon, rotating down to support the Viper and the Visage. Now going to be kind of a tri-lane to further box out this Lifestealer, and Lifestealer still struggling so much on the net worth chart. Only at about 1.6k, getting doubled by the leading farmers here. Definitely not where he wants to be. In the top, Weaver struggling against that solo Bristleback here. He is going to be forced back, almost getting taken out, but alas will survive. Yeah, looks like they do want to dive this tower down here in the bottom. Lich going to fall as that burst damage comes out, compliments of the Visage, but have they overcommitted here? Viper maybe in a little bit of trouble. The Visage, oh man, going to try to pour it out, but is going to fall as Bristleback comes down, and they are going to grab a kill on the Viper. So it looked like a nice engage onto the Lich, but an overcommitment as the ports come in, and they're going to turn it around for a 2-for-1 exchange, going the way of our dire team. Of course, OSG, a nice pick-me-up for Lifestealer there as well, going to grab some assists, and no, didn't grab any of the last hits himself, but still, those assists very, very valuable, and also the experience there for Lifestealer going to come in handy. So OSG here at the 10-minute mark, going to pull ahead 4-2 as they continue to find good exchanges about the BAP. Big Num now going to head to the top lane, looking for a bit of farming room against this Weaver, and I think he's going to find it, at least going to be able to snake himself a couple of last hits here.
You know what he's really going to get up here, not just the last hits, but if you look at the deny count from the Viper, Viper had 28 denies against that Lifestealer in the bottom lane. And they've been doing so much, even with the fact that Lich was pulling the lane back, that Lich was denying XP. Until those kills, Viper had 2 levels on Lifestealer. It was really, really unfortunate for the Lifestealer that he was falling so far behind, and the fact that they can kind of get him up into this safe lane, maybe rotate the Bristleback somewhere else, he can get a little bit of work done. He's got his treads, he's got his Ring of Health. If he wants a Vanguard, he's going to have it very, very soon. So he'll be able to just make things happen instead of sitting and soaking up farm. And now the Lifestealer gets to sit and soak up this farm. The Bristleback got what he needed at the proper timing, so they can kind of slow down the need for safe farm on him and just give the Lifestealer some recovery space.
Right. And that's exactly what they have going on here. Now about 1,200 gold in the bank for the Lifestealer. Looks like they wanted to engage on the Weaver, but that sneaky Spider going to be able to make it out. And Lich going to rotate to the top lane here. So you're exactly right. A full lane rotation as Bristleback now level 9 going to be able to go toe-to-toe with that Viper. We see him turning his back 3 points now on that Bristleback. So doing everything he can to try and mitigate the damage coming from Viper. And this is definitely good news for OSG. Let's take a look at the gold graph. It's still in favor of Aspera. About 1,000 gold lead, but that experience graph now starting to sway the way of OSG, as they actually have Bristleback leading the way on the net worth chart. Orb of Venom, first item for the Lifestealer, and we'll see what he grabs next. I'm curious if he's going to go a Hand of Midas here. We've seen Lifestealers go for that kind of late Hand of Midas to make that recovery farm, and this could be a game where that is something that he wants to consider, but also could go for that kind of classic Armlet first if he wants to hit that kind of mid-game timing. I have a feeling in this match he's going to want to grab that Hand of Midas, but we'll see. 1,700 gold in the bank. He's going to have the ability to get executive with those item choices pretty quickly here.
He's got the recipe coming out. He actually just bought it. And I totally agree with you that this is a really, really good decision on his part because of the amount of space that Bristleback is likely going to be able to create for him. Look at this. They have 3 heroes fighting onto this Bristleback with Visage Birds, and he takes almost no damage because he has that very, very early Vanguard. He has those 3 points up in Bristleback. He was allowed to get a lot of the early farm, and now Lifestealer is going to have so much time to recover with that Hand of Midas, because it's going to be very hard for Aspera to break any buildings if there's a Bristleback and a CM and a Venomancer defending them. That's an incredibly difficult combo to fight.
Right. And well, that is going to secure the first tower kill of the match, although Bristleback can survive a bit of the damage. He can't defend that tower, so the first tower kill will go the way of Aspera. Going to make it 1-0, and that is that bottom tier 1. So I do like the choice to just piggyback on what you were saying. The Vanguard first on Bristleback, just such a great item for this stage in the game. Mitigates so much damage, and I think you're spot on about opening up that space. Big Num now very close to the Midas, about 1 creep kill or so away from grabbing the Gloves of Haste to go with that recipe. But we are going to see some initiation up here. Lich going to be engaged on. We'll be able to get the Chain Frost off. Going to connect with the Weaver. He does make it out in time to prevent any bounces from coming. Sharfit going to be able to dive the tower. Does finish off the Lich. Big Num needs to be a little bit careful here. They are going to dive it. They want to try and make something happen. He's just going to go ahead and port out of here. He knows they have no way to interrupt it, and he will survive. Going to cut his losses, but very unfortunate for OSG there. Down in the bottom lane, there's going to be a bit of action coming out. Crystal Maiden going to get taken out. Bristleback trying to finish off the Viper. Not going to have the damage to finish him before he ports out. So that's going to be a kill going the way of Aspera. Well, several kills going the way of Aspera, winning the bottom lane, and now going to be able to grab that top tier 1 tower as well. Aspera starting to take control of this game. They know that OSG are trying to make that space for Lifestealer, and they've done a great job with these rotations, continuing to put the pressure on, and now that gold lead upwards of just about 4,000 here at only the 14-minute mark. Experience graph negligible, but those 2 early tower kills really going to help Aspera pick up some momentum.
I'm really disagreeing with Big Num's choice to buy another town portal instead of just finishing his Midas when he got back to base, because he was like maybe 10 gold off when he TP'd back in, bought a TP, so he wasn't able to finish it up, and now has to farm it up instead, and the portal wasn't even off cooldown, so he basically lost about a minute's worth of Midas timing, which, you know, it's not huge, but it's small things, and if he's like a little bit behind in a team fight, you really can look back to that decision, and maybe that slightly delayed Midas timing to be significant. It probably won't be, but if it gets really close, that could have been a deciding moment right there.
Yeah, we see in the mid lane here, looks like there could be some initiation coming the way of OSG, pardon me. We see the Visage Familiars sort of starting the initiation, but both Familiars actually going to get picked off, so that's going to be a nice 200 gold bounty going the way of OSG, and now the initiation going to come forward here. Bristleback going to be in the front line, so going to engage on the Viper. There is a mech already going to be used, and that is going to help keep the Viper alive. All the support coming out from the Abaddon, and look at that. They're going to be able to turn it around. Lich going to be the first to fall. Bristleback taking a lot of damage here. Viper did get taken out in the mix, but it is a 2-for-1 here. Viper for the Lich and the Bristleback. Looks like Big Num can be in some trouble as well, and Crystal Maiden is going to be able to finish off that Weaver, maybe getting a bit hyper-aggressive. Venomancer does have a double damage rune on, so helping OSG stay alive in that fight. When it's all said and done, it ends up being a 2-for-2 exchange, but Aspera does grab that tier 1 tower in the mid lane here, and it was denied by the Venomancer. Very nicely done, but still, that's going to be 3-0 in total tower count, so I think Aspera coming out slightly ahead in that fight, as they did manage to pick off the Bristleback, but of course, it did cost them their Viper and their Weaver.
Veno did get his mech though, like just after that fight with the kills he managed to get and all the gold he managed to get. So the big deciding factor in that fight was the fact that Aspera had a mech and OSG didn't. Yep. And Aspera's had the mech on the Viper for several minutes now. It's been very useful. It's gotten him out of some very sticky situations, and it really turned that fight and let them get enough pressure for the tower. I think without that mech, Viper goes down a lot sooner. Timbersaw doesn't feel nearly as comfortable diving in without the extra mech armor and without all of that to kind of keep him alive. And I think that OSG picks up maybe 2 kills for 1, or maybe even 2 kills for 0. Maybe even 3 if they manage to get the chase going.
Right.
But now that the Veno is there with the mech, and he's going to be able to have that extra turnaround as well to keep OSG alive, I think the next team fight, unless Aspera picks up something significant between now and then, could actually be really, really bad for Aspera's end of things, because they're relying on that mech difference, and the mech difference is just no longer present.
Yeah, and one of the other turning of the tides in that fight was Bristleback's positioning. They did so well keeping that Viper alive, and it seemed like OSG dumped a lot of resources into killing the Viper. He survived, compliments of the mech, the Abaddon shield, the Mist Coil, and then they turned on the Bristleback, and Bristleback, once he gets down to about 20%, he just turns his back, and you get to that mindset of, oh, just finish him, he's so low, but that last 20% translates into a lot of quill sprays, and that's what started to turn that fight, as they switched their focus to Bristleback when he had his back turned. A lot of damage came out, and that ended up being kind of a break even. But OSG going to go for a pretty early Roshan here, right around that 17-minute mark. He is going to fall completely uncontested. Aegis going to end up in the inventory of the Bristleback, who is now level 11. So a nice, crafty little play from OSG, realizing they had a window of opportunity there, and of course they did capitalize on it. Big Num now does have his phase boots complete, or at least he's got the Blades of Attack in the bank, so So, well, starting to work towards some recovery farm here, as he does have that Hand of Midas complete, as we were talking about. Still pretty low on that net worth chart. He is at the end of the pack, but still doing all right. And whoa, Lich just going to get obliterated here as Sharfik dives forward at the tier 2, and the fight going to start to commence. Bristleback taking a lot of damage here. He's right in the mix. Venomancer going to be able to get the ult off, going to connect with a lot of heroes. Crystal Maiden is going to fall. That'll be the end of the Bristleback as well. Of course, he's coming back. He does have the Aegis in tow, and this fight may not go the way Aspera wanted. They have a huge advantage right now, but the Aegis going to start to turn the tides a little bit. Bristleback doing an absurd amount of damage right here. This Viper going to be in big trouble. He is going to get stunned. Another sticky goo going to come out, but no, Tapo going to be forced to turn around. Oh man, you know, the Aegis on the Bristleback is so synergistic because he stacks all the quills, he dies, he comes back up, and he starts spraying quills again. The stacks don't reset, so it looked like that fight may start to turn the way of OSG, but Aspera did a great job with that positioning. Viper, 1 or 2 quill sprays from death, but alas, he was able to mitigate it, and it's a huge fight for Aspera right there, exchanging 1 for 3, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, and Aspera happily proving me wrong. Not only did they get the 3 kills there, but you have to remember the Lich bought back and died again.
Oh, yeah.
Which is pretty significant. He bought back, and it was an important buyback. He TP'd in, he got his Chain Frost off, and he started to turn that around. But in the end, just too much damage coming out of the Timbersaw. The Rod of Atos, giving him that extra health and the intelligence, he's just picked that up, was, I think, very, very significant. They weren't able to bring him down. And of course, against his physical armor, he only has the 1 point in reactive armor, but at the same time, he is stacking up that bonus armor. The quills aren't being nearly as effective. The Viper managed to just barely get out. I think that corrosive skin, very, very significant. Of course, every time you quill him, you get slowed. You get a 25% move slow just for landing quills on him, which makes Bristleback's chasing potential really, really bad. And oh, hasted Timbersaw going in.
Exactly right. This is going to be a little bit scary, doing a lot of damage to that Venomancer. Veno still doesn't have the Poison Nova up, so not a bad target to choose, but doesn't bring a lot to the table here with that big ulti on cooldown. But with that, Aspera going to be able to zone out OSG, and they're not going to be able to defend that tier 2 tower here in the bottom lane. That's going to take the total tower count now 4-0 in favor of Aspera. And just look at that KDA chart, man. Timbersaw is 6-0-2. Sharfik is on fire this match, and unfortunately that Lich has been kind of the target of choice. He is 0-6-2, not having the game of his life, and well, poor Lichy starting to fall a little bit behind here, but Aspera just picking up this momentum, and they are not going to let it go. They're going to rotate to the mid lane here, and I think they're going to continue pressuring these towers, as they well should. No reason why they shouldn't continue to pressure it while this Lifestealer desperately continues to farm. It's basically a 5v4 about the map right now, because this Lifestealer is just so underfarmed, and he's trying to find these opportunities to pick up any kind of recovery farm that he can get. He's got phase boots now, working towards that armlet, but still a ways off, pretty much just the Helm of Iron Will. Viper maybe overcommitting up here in the top lane. He's going to go ahead and ult the Lifestealer, wants to go toe-to-toe with him. The Frostbite going to be working against him here. Now just going to try and shift his focus to the Crystal Maiden. The open wound's going to come out. This Viper is damn tanky, though. He's going to survive. Weaver's going to be able to make it up here, and that'll be the end of the Crystal Maiden. The Lifestealer are going to infest into a friendly creep. Of course, they can't deny it, so he is going to be safe for now. A nice little play, but wow, just look at how tanky that Viper is. Unable to take him down in a 1v2. That mech kind of worth its weight in gold right now, I think.
Yeah, 18 armor with the mech pop, so that means 16 base. He has all of the hit points that he gets from the point booster, as well as the 250 extra hit point swing from the mech. I mean, I said he was going to be able to armor up very, very nicely. Now look at just how tanky he is at this point in the mid-game. This is exactly what you want on a Viper. You want him durable. You want him, that corrosive skin, keep stacking up. You want to keep being able to stack poison attacks on people. And once he has that Aghanims, which he's 250 gold away from right now, he wants to just keep being tanky so he can keep throwing that Viper strike out every 12 seconds. He's built this perfectly. He's snowballed very, very well, and Wall Eater in a very, very strong position.
Yep, absolutely, and I love what Sharfik is doing right here. We see Aspera take out that top tier 2 tower, and he just completely zoned out OSG with that Rod of Atos. They know if anyone gets engaged on the Atos and then the Chakram coming out, he can burst down one of these supports pretty easily. So OSG basically say, all right, go ahead and take it. We're not going to defend this. We're going to have to get through the Timbersaw to get to you guys, and I just love when Sharfik picks up this bit of early momentum. He can be so aggressive and zone out the entire team like that. Tower count now 5-1, still in favor of Aspera, of course. They are just going to rotate to the mid lane here and pressure the last outer tower for OSG, and OSG stationed about the tower, but it doesn't look like they're going to be able to defend it too easily here. They are going to burn the glyph to Poe on that Bristleback, going to walk forward here. Shane Frost going to come out, going to connect with the Viper, going to start bouncing around the creeps. Mech going to get popped. There's the Poison Nova from the Veno, but oh no, this is looking bad for OSG as Sharfik hops in. He's going to be able to finish off the Lich. The tower does fall, doesn't get denied. Big Num just getting completely shut down, so slow from all that poison on the Viper. Now to Poe going to fall. That's going to be an easy 3-0, and tower exchange. This fight really could not have gone better for Team Aspera.
That Rod of Owie, man, it's being so incredibly effective for Sharfiq. I mean, if you watch like his individual casts of it, he started that off by putting it on the bristlebacks. They're able to just kill the bristleback. He's not able to get away. He's not able to chase anyone. He's not able to reposition, and he was just caught out of position at the start. And then after the Lifestealer rage, when the fight is going poorly, they're trying to disengage. It's up again. 12-second cooldown, pops it on the Lifestealer, secures the kill on him. And it's just if you look at the team Aspera has, they have a team that their three cores are really, really good at kiting. Weaver, Viper, and Timbersaw are very, very good at not getting caught, very good at getting away. And you have two heroes on OSG who are really kind of weak against kiting between the Lifestealer and the Bristleback. And so adding the Rod of Atos with that slow on its 12-second cooldown to add to that kiting potential is hugely significant. It basically means that neither of these melee heroes can ever get in position. Aspera can kind of move around freely during these fights. And it's just the fact that, look, for the last 5 minutes or so, OSG hasn't been able to secure a kill because their cores can't actually get in position to put any damage out.
Yeah, absolutely right about that. And Lich, he's going to get engaged on by the Viper, but going to be able to pour it out just in the nick of time. I have the symphony of dogs going crazy in the background, so I do apologize if that's carrying over the stream here. But a nice item pickup on the Weaver, and an interesting item pickup. Going to be a BKB, so he opened with the Ring of Health, sort of looked like the standard Linken's play. Instead, just going to transition into basically a casual Ring of Health into a BKB here. Any thoughts about that, Chris?
I can't really tell you. Just the idea of Linken's isn't really that amazingly effective against OSG, just because of the bristleback mostly. He's very able to break that with the nasal goo. I guess he just really felt he needed the Ring of Health for regen in lane to stack up against that bristleback quill spray, to stack up against all of that harass. And now it would be a waste of money to finish the Linken's. I agree with that.
Bristleback here. He did pop that blade mail that he picked up, and no damage coming out his way. Not even going to try and pour it out. He's going to fall. It's going to be a monster kill coming out for Sharfiq. Yeah, that was a pretty easy kill right there. Bristleback, again, he did pick up that blade mail. Sort of a good item pickup here. Does have a cloak as well as an Ogre Club. Just generally tanky at the moment, but you know, the problem with blade mail is if the other team doesn't attack you, it's just a little bit useless, as we saw right there. And Lifestealer, he's going to be able to grab his armlet. So that is a step in the right direction, but OSG are just so far behind right now. 10,000 gold, 5,000 experience difference, and I mean, the item gap is just what's so scary here. Timbersaw now working working towards his Bloodstone, does have that soul booster, and just a perseverance away from getting a Bloodstone to follow up that Rod of Owie, as it may be. Lich going to get picked off here, and it looks like Aspera just going to go full steam ahead into this tier 3 tower down in the bottom lane. Is there a glyph available? No. So OSG going to have a little bit of trouble defending this. At the very least, I think this tier 3 tower going to fall. Venomancer going to use the Poison Nova, but not going to do a hell of a lot. Sharfiq going to be able to finish him off. He is going to buy back straight away, and let's see, our OSG going to be able to take this fight. Weaver going to be forced back here. Viper still in the front lines, doing a lot of damage, trying to do what he can against this Bristleback. He does have the surprise inside right now. The Lifestealer is infested, not going to do any damage with it. A very defensive infest. And whoa, that long-range chakra, I'm going to finish off the Bristleback. And this fight just not going the way for OSG. They're able to stay alive pretty well here. Of course, Veno already bought back. If he falls again, this could be bad. Mech is going to be used. A few more auto attacks. Down he goes. Viper going to be able to finish him off here. Timbersaw does finally get picked off as Lich is starting to chip away at him. Viper could be in a bit of a sticky scenario here. Going to throw the ult onto the Lich, but he is going to get taken out. So maybe a bit of an overcommitment from Aspera. They do dive that tower. Viper will finish off the Lich, though. Compliments of all that poison definitely does go the way of Aspera. They lose 2, and they pick up 3 kills, and of course Veno did buy back, and they killed him twice. So a very convincing team fight nonetheless. Unfortunately, not able to break the base, but this tier 3, just one easy push away from falling.
I just want to point out, I was talking about how well the Viper was going to do if he got the durability. I was talking about how well he did with the Abaddon. He got like 5 Viper strikes off during that fight. I was counting. I think I missed one at the beginning, so I'm giving. But I was like watching him like, there's another one, it's off cooldown. There's another one, it's off cooldown. Like, he got the Veno, I think, twice. He got the Lich at the end there. He got the Bristleback at least, and I'm pretty sure I missed one. So just the power of that Aghanims, the power of a tanky Viper, constantly throwing out everything he needs. And now that he's got all this tankiness, he's just starting to get some damage. He's got a Yasha, probably going to go in for a Manta style next because he can afford to get physical damage. He's almost unkillable at this point with all of that armor, with the Aphotic Shield, with the Abaddon heals, with the mech.
Right.
And the problem is, they've got 3 heroes like that. I mean, you have the BKB Weaver, who doesn't have as many hit points as everyone else, but thanks to the Shikuchi, thanks to the time lapse, he's incredibly hard to bring down. He actually has gone back for a Perseverance, so I'm wondering if he's still gonna get a Lincoln's, which would be really, really weird to me. But
BKB Lincolns.
yeah. Well, I just don't like it against Bristleback.
Yeah.
I think it's a bad item choice, but it's up to him.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you have the Timbersaw, who's also just flying around in fights, completely unkillable. So you have three heroes who you basically have to focus your entire team on to kill. And there's an Abaddon just sitting back there healing them, who you would otherwise have to focus your team on to kill, where you rip them apart. They're at the point where if you need a full team commitment to kill one hero and they kill like three heroes while you're doing it, you're in a really bad position.
Yeah. No, it's true. I mean, right now, Aspera have just this unbelievably tanky force. The only easy target for OSG is the Visage, and Visage is really never an easy target.
Well,
he's got a ton of
four stacks
armor.
of Gravekeeper Slug now.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he's a tanky force as well. So Aspera just going the straight survivability strat, and I think OSG just can't outlast in these team fights. One thing, a really good Lich ult could turn the tides in some of these upcoming team fights, but that's still sort of grasping at straws. Aspera would have to be like on top of each other in a really poor position for something like that to happen. But alas, Roshang here going to pop back up right around the 28-minute mark, and Aspera going to go ahead and finish him off straight away. Aegis of the Immortal going to go to the inventory of the Timbersaw, who is now 10-1-5. He's going to grab himself a double damage rune, and he's also finished up his Bloodstone. So Sharfik just having one hell of a game here, and he's going to continue with that momentum, I think. Wall Eater still in great shape, 6-3-10 on that Viper. He is now level 16 as well, so that's the level 3 Viper strike, and yeah, that is damn scary. Looking at the net worth chart, things starting to look even more grim for OSG. They are trying to pressure these towers. We see Big Num pressuring the tier 2 in the top lane. He does need to be a little bit careful here. Of course, he does have that armlet, as we mentioned. Familiar is going to come in, and they're going to maybe harass him back just a little bit here. He may be able to grab himself a tier 2 tower kill, but Aspera say, all right, you know what? You're going to take that tier 2. We'll be happy to trade it for your tier 3 and perhaps even your racks up here. There is a glyph available for OSG. A glyph was used by Aspera. Glyph going to get burned right away by OSG. They want to keep this tier 3 tower alive, trying to buy as much time as they can. Lifestealer is going to port back at the beginning of this fight. Again, Sharfik with the double damage rune on. He's in the front lines. He's trying to zone out OSG to open up some room for Aspera to continue pressuring down these racks. Now that they're exposed, no glyph available, they are going to be able to start chipping away. Lich Ult going to come out. Chain Frost going to take some nice bounces here, bouncing all over Aspera. Poison Nova going to come out as well. Mech going to get popped. First to fall was the Lich. Venomancer going to fall shortly after. Now it looks like the Crystal Maiden could be in some trouble as well. Viper, he's going to be in some trouble here as Tapo as well as Big Num get a push out, but no, oh my god. The support from the Abaddon going to keep him alive. Abaddon does sacrifice himself, but it's going to be a clean sweep for OSG. Buybacks come out here. Bristleback, Lifestealer, and the CM all buy back. The racks are actually still alive, though we do see a GG from Chomi on the Veno. Might have been a joke, though. Could be BM. Nope, he's going to go ahead and just tap out, so I think that's going to be it here, Hippie. OSG going to fall after 30 minutes of gameplay. Aspera with a very convincing win right here. This Timbersaw just playing out of his mind. He is going to get taken out. That will proc the Aegis, but yep, that's it. Going to be the end of our second of 5 games here for Starladder Season 8 on Beyond the Summit. We'll take a look at the stats here. Chris, what do you think? An MVP for this match, who do you like?
I think the mech timing on Viper was MVP, but if you have to pick a player, it's got to be Sharfik. He put out so much work. He was in every single fight. He got a ton of kills. He slowed down OSG, and just overall was all over the map setting things up for his team.
Absolutely right, my friend. So we do have plenty more Dota action coming your way, guys. Probably the biggest match of the day coming up next. Poseidon versus the Power Rangers. Going to be game number 3 here of 5 for our Starladder Season 8 coverage. Stay with us, folks. Next match coming up in a jiff.